for a future date possibly. At that time, I'd like to turn this over to Chief Sentner.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
First item on my agenda is request a motion to approve the hiring of Jacob Ghetto as a full-time probationary patrolman effective Monday, August 2nd, 2021.
Second.
Seconded by Augustine. Any further?
I should say so moved.
Right. I'll second.
It's already been a day.
So moved by Augustine, seconded by do I hear a third? I'll third that too. Okay, any further discussion, trustees? All in favor? Well, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So, motion has passed. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, and I believe Trustee Augustine will now swear Jacob in.
I will. Welcome, Jacob.
Come forward, Mr.
Here.
Where are we going?
We're going to stand right here in the middle of the room so everybody can see you. Hi, Melissa Augustine. Very nice to meet you.
Someone,
Raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Jacob Ghetto,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and will faithfully discharge my duties
and faithfully discharge my duties
as an officer for the Police Department
as an officer for the Police Department
of Hinckley Township and Medina County,
of Hinckley Township in Medina County,
State of Ohio.
State of Ohio.
Congratulations and welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Welcome. Thank you. Nice to meet you. I think you'll find your time here educational, wonderful kids. Thank you. We're going to group
photo.
Congratulations.
Take our group photo. Oh, boy.
Thank
you. Come on in. No, I want to. Hey, I was ready. I was ready.
I don't want to be in this picture. You guys keep getting wider and wider.
Ready?
I don't know
One,
which camera to look at.
2, 3.
Go over to the far right officers.
Awesome. Thank you so
She
much.
must have gotten it.
Oh, I got you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Martha, good to see you.
Good to see you. How are you? Yeah.
All right.
Okay, go ahead. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Welcome to Hinkley. We're so happy to have you.
Hey, Chief, real quick, just for the public's information, Jacob's got a great background in law enforcement already and comes from a family of law enforcement as well. You want to share a little bit
absolutely. Jacob spent the last 2 years with Medina Township Police Department full-time. Prior to that, he was with Montville part-time. His dad spent close to 30 years with Medina City's Police Department, retiring from there. So I've known the family for a long time. He's got that's a patrolman over at Brunswick Hills Township. So it's a family steep in the law enforcement tradition, and we are very happy and lucky to have him joining our family. So
hope he retires.
Great.
I hope I can come back for that.
Thank you very much, Chief. What's next on your
All right, what
agenda?
else do we have?
Next item, request for appropriations and approval for Detective Kenny to attend the 2021 Ohio Police Juvenile Officers Association seminar on issues and trends of today's youth to be held August 3rd through the 6th, 2021 in Newark, Ohio. A total cost of $595. That includes the conference fee, meals, and lodging. Any other additional expenses, Jeff will cover himself.
Total cost. So moved.
Second. Moved and seconded. Any further discussion, trustees? All in favor, say aye. 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 That's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Last item I have is our review and approval of the proposed police department lateral hiring policy that we've discussed over the last couple of weeks. There's a copy of that in your packet. I also had sent the board an email on Friday with the final verbiage on that.
Of that package, do you have it?
I do have it.
Oh,
Would you like me to review that in its entirety, or?
No, I think we're good on that. We've discussed, well, you've discussed it with each one of the trustees at length. Martha, did you have something to
Yeah, I
add?
do. Can we add to that the sick leave is not, cannot be used upon
Legal decision, Sarah.
so that can't be in over. So,
I would have to check it.
our department, and they come over with, 2,000 hours of sick leave from another department.
I understand. I don't know.
Well, that is what I would like clarification on, because
Okay.
even at 30%, we don't need to be paying, 80, 90 hours of sick leave for someone that transferred over. And that has been in previous hirings.
The sick leave issue is completely addressed in the Ohio Revised Code.
I
as to what-
understand that.
No, and I understand your point, and I have no problem getting a legal opinion as to how that will work. And then we
Because I
can move
think
forward.
even the cash out of that policy is particular to our union agreement. So therefore, we're accepting the sick leave, and they can by all means use it while they're here. It's just that if they use it, then it's gone, and it's not going to be accumulated for a potential cash out upon a retirement. You could even set a number of years on that. But that's the only thing I would like clarification on.
And I will certainly do that with Sarah. There's a number of questions that verbiage would raise to me. Example, if an officer ends up with a situation where they burn all their sick leave off and then come back to work, does that magical number they brought with them still hold over their head? Or
No,
does
they
it?
use it, right?
Okay, and so and that's going to have to be spelled out, I think.
I have no problem with using the sick leave that's transferred over as time. My issue is
I understand
upon any
completely.
retirement, that sick leave that was earned at another jurisdiction, entity, wherever, is not part of the payout. And that's easily done within the UAN system, because you can easily deduct, that amount. And I think, if I'm correct, the contract allows for a 30% payout upon
That's
a
correct.
retirement.
30%, yeah.
Yeah. So I just would like that
Up to
clarified.
And I believe it's capped at a max anyway.
Correct.
Of 330 hours or
Right.
so.
So, it's almost that would get utilized.
I just want to make sure that it's spelled out very clearly. So
I do
that,
too.
Because more than likely, this will not be an issue for my tenure as chief of police, but it could affect whoever follows me at some point with potential hires down the road. So I
And you could
completely,
even you could even quantify it. You could say, any sick leave transfer in excess of.
Right.
I mean, there can be a reasonable amount, but nonetheless, if somebody
Sure,
would come
absolutely.
over with
Right.
thousands of hours.
I'm sure I will get a response from Sarah prior to the next meeting, and we can move forward at that time.
Yeah, and it may be language that's in the contract more than this document.
Sure. That's all I've got.
Very good. And I have pretty good notes. So if you have any questions, you've got my number. Thank you.
Anything else, Chief?
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Martha. Good point.
Chief Rosenbaugh, you're up.
How are you guys doing tonight?
Good. How are you?
Good. So I got a couple things here, and then one item that needs to be adjusted at the tail end of it. So first, request appropriations of $1,155.91 for emergency repairs to our generators from Cummings. We had 2 weeks in a row of a fail start during its weekly test. The first week they came out, they could not get it to fail to start. The following week, again, called them out service, they found it. Just like as in a car where, hey, it's making this noise, you go take it to a repair shop and it's not making noise, you can't fix what they don't know. So when I got the invoice, I called them and go, this is a 5.5-year-old generator. Why is this regulator, having this? Because they suggested to replace it. And she goes, it's a moving part. for her, the sales, or the woman I talked to who's been at Cummings for 15 years. She goes, I've seen this numerous times. She goes, there is no rhyme or reason to it. She goes, adjusted, and it may work years to come. It may fail next week, and you'll be in the same boat. So they're recommending to replace it. So the first item is to do the emergency repair that was completed over the last 2 weeks to it.
From Cummings for $1,000.
Yeah, 1,001. Yep.
91 cents.
Yes.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion, trustees? Limited warranties. I'm gonna have to read this warranty. I'll move forward with this, but yeah, there's definitely a warranty. I have to read it though. It's very small.
It's a 1 year. They said it's one, because I asked. That's the first thing I asked was it? Yeah, it was 1 year. It's growing pains with the station, as we've seen over the course of my tenure here, that it's kind of growing pains in the station, or in that
Very good.
station.
Moved and seconded. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Passed.
Thanks. Next is request for appropriations for the $1,362.41 for the new regulator for the generator, so that this can get fixed and we don't have failure to start. And if the power kicks off, we have the power to kick back on again.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. That's unanimous. Motion's passed. Thank you.
Thank you. Request appropriations for $766.50 for our annual SCBA flow and bench test from Warren Fire Equipment. This is, they come out and check all our air packs to make sure they're for their annual service.
Yes. So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
Well, I just want to make sure we have the right amount. Perfect. I was reading two numbers too
No
close to
problem.
each other.
You did say this was annual.
Yeah, this is the annual. Yep.
Mhm.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
No.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Clean, did you say aye?
I did.
Everybody said aye. That's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item, if you guys remember, back in early May, I asked for some money for some fitness equipment, and they couldn't do a PO, so we rescinded that motion. So Lieutenant Thomas and Lieutenant Landis have been looking, along with myself, for fitness equipment. So we're asking for appropriations through Rep Fitness here. They can PO, and we're actually getting more for less than what that original quote was. So I'd like to request appropriations for $3,840.80 for fitness equipment, including a functional trainer and a PR 400 power rack plus accessories from Rep Fitness. And they'll be able to give us a PO and invoice us and get everything laid out for us. All the association equipment that they provided years ago is definitely wearing out.
Mhm. So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion, questions?
Thank you for working on this. I know it's taken some
Thank you.
time.
Yeah.
This is much more feasible.
Yeah, and they'll actually give us a little more room in the gym
Right.
on it, because it's combining a bunch of equipment into two pieces, opposed to, I think there's 4 in there now.
Perfect.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That's unanimous. Motion
Thank you.
passed.
Next is request for resolution to renew our 5-year subscription through I Am Responding at a rate of $650 per year, which comes out to $3,250. We've had this for 5 years. Our contract was up. We analyzed it. We talked, did a video conference with the rep to see if this was what we want to do. Last meeting, we got that microcomputer, hooked it up to a screen. The TV is hooked up in the hallway leading from the cruise quarters to the bay. It's a message center. It's a data center. When calls pop up, it maps out. It's working great. So it's been up now for almost a week and a half now. And the guys are loving it. I'm loving it because I'm getting information out there as things change. We actually it'll send weekly reminders of training and any other pages that I need to be put out. It'll put them on their phone and their email. So I'd like to renew this for the 5 years. I believe on there you see there is a price breakdown too.
There is. That's what I was.
What is, and the 5 years is best. And like I said, this has been prior to myself becoming as chief, so we've kind of done it. And after analyzing everything, it's definitely a great app to utilize for responding and everything else.
Okay, this time I'd like to make a resolution to enter into a 5-year subscription with I Am Responding at a rate of $660 per year for a total, and our numbers are off on the
You said 660?
660 is what is on the
Okay.
invoice.
Yeah, oh, yes.
So let me do some quick.
Are you getting this telephone call cost then?
That is all included in there, yeah. That's all part of their subscription.
So it's for a total cost of $3,300 for the 5 years.
Yeah. If we pay it all at once, there is a,
Not doing that.
okay, that's fine. That's,
There's another 5% discount.
So 660.
Correct, for a total of $3,300.
And does that payment get submitted with this agreement then?
yes, it does.
Okay,
This-
so that's
yep.
gonna have to wait until the next
Yeah,
meeting.
that's fine.
Okay.
We'll get everything filled out and completed over to you, Martha.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you.
Seconded by Kalina, moved by Augustine. Any further discussion? Jess, this is new to us?
No, we've had it for 5 years.
Is this going to integrate with the television monitor?
That's what it, yeah, that's what it is.
And then, 'cause I remember.
Yep, that's what it's doing. It's working great. Yep.
Okay. No, any other questions? All in favor? Well, let's make a roll call, please.
Kalina,
Yes.
Augustine,
Yes.
Kern.
Yes.
Thank you. Next is reinstate Dustin Baser from his leave of absence as a part-time back to part-time firefighter paramedic with his full pay of $16.54. He was hired earlier in the year with Strongsville Fire. He took a leave to kind of get himself squared away
Thank you for your work on that.
Thanks, Tom, for us too.
That goes to Tom. Tom worked on this one, so, I was just in the cursors.
Roll call, please.
Kalina?
Yes.
Augustine?
Yes.
Bernie?
Yes. Thank you. That's passed.
Okay. Just gonna sign it right now. That's okay.
That's why there's two.
Tom already signed off on this. So you can see the lot there. The funny story is that 20-some years later, the lot that was created in Medina Township, which took a lot of effort at the time, because I guess that hadn't been a common practice 20-some years ago, actually belongs to my superintendent now. So he purchased the house. They said, I know that house. I know the history behind that. And they've got, they utilize the whole property, and it's beautiful. And they've improved that. And it's just a wonderful addition to their home. They have that extra space.
Thank you.
We'll get this back to you, and just get it out of the way for now.
No,
Okay?
that's perfect.
All right. That bother you?
No, I just think it's funny how we use all the space.
We use all the space.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Probably worse than the
Thank you.
others. Thank you.
Quarterly zoning department report is always of interest when you get to look back and see what's happening in the township, a little snapshot. We've had 6 fences that went, so this is January through March, just so you know. So this is first quarter. And one of the most popular things was in-ground pools in the township. People staycationing. We had eight pools approved January through March. And we had 5 new residences that went in over that 3-month period of time. So I would tell you right now, I mean, that just appears to me like that number is trending down in the township. I will just add to this, just kind of interesting. So I was at the Medina County Planning Commission meeting on July 7th and give you some statistics across Medina County right now and what's happening. There have been, just for the first half of the year in Medina County, so we're just talking this year so far, there's been 19 major subdivisions that have been approved in Medina County. There's been 26 minor subdivisions that were approved. Of the 26 minor subdivisions, there was 55 sublots. Of the 19 major subdivisions, there were 634 sublots created in Medina County the first 6 months out of the year. So we're talking almost 700 parcels of property approved just for the first part of the year. And to the best of my knowledge, we haven't approved any here other than these couple of combination lots that we've had. So we certainly have been blessed in Hinckley Township that we're not following the trend that, you know, there's a lot of development pressure in Medina County, but we don't seem at this point in time to be following that trend right now. So I just thought that was a very interesting observation from the planning department's building report that they provided. And in terms of zoning violations, I expect a couple of our largest issues that we've had ongoing, I would say, to be turned over to the prosecutor's office tomorrow. So we'll probably start to hear a little bit more about maybe some progress with those. One of them happens to be an encroachment that's been that the zoning department's been dealing with for years. And the other one is an ongoing violation that the health department has actually been involved with as well. So those two will be turned over hopefully tomorrow. It takes a long time. It takes a lot of research for Suzanne, who's the clerk, and Tom Wilson, and Mr. Zablotny, who most people don't know because he doesn't attend the meetings, but he's a kind of subcontract employee that handles our violations for us here in the township. It takes them a lot of research to put together years of information and contacts to individuals where we've been trying to make some progress on some of these ongoing zoning violations around the township. And so some of those, hopefully, we'll be able to move forward and make some progress with. And that is the zoning report for right now.
Thank you very much.
Very good.
I have quarterly cemetery report to share with everybody for the first quarter of this year. We sold 8 lots for $3,200. We had 3 burials for $1,875 with a total collection of $5,075. Okay. Thank you very much. Back to you, Mr. Cleaner.
That was fast. Okay. In terms of zoning updates, we have been in a continuance mode. would be the update on that. Both boards continued their last meetings, and so those will be moving forward. And you did receive from me a contract from OHM regarding the approval for the 4 hours of service that the trustees approved at the June 15th meeting that we had. And I did forward that to Mr. Richter. He reviewed it, and he had provided some feedback. And in my conversations, and actually I have Martha to thank for this, and some conversations just talking about past practice as well as working with OHM. I had a follow-up conversation with OHM, and we're not going to use any contract for this. This is really a very simple question that they were making potentially a little bit more challenging. The question is really, how does the application that the township received comply with our comprehensive plan? The comprehensive plan was approved by the Board of Trustees. It was approved in cooperation with OHM, so they're familiar with the plan. And so there's really no reason for us to make that any more challenging than that. We're going to forward them a copy of the minutes that we approved, the not to exceed $500 for planning assistance, with providing us with some information on how the application complies with our comprehensive plan. So it's really as simple as that. And so I appreciated Martha providing me with some a little bit of background on that as well, and just helping me think a little bit more clear about the request that was being asked.
Thank you. Anything
Very
else?
good.
So you can forget about the contract that you mentioned.
That we have copies.
Thank you. We'll turn it over to Trustee Augustine.
Are you ready?
I am.
Okay, I'm going to kind of move things around a little bit. I have Domaker, who was supposed to be here tonight. Domaker, we chose as an architect to look at the addition to the police station. And during our conversations with the architect, we determined that we would see if this building was feasible as a potential police station, and moving the administration offices and meeting room to the old police station. And so before we can move forward with that contract, we really need to have a discussion as to what you both feel and what Chief Setner feels is the best avenue. The more I think about it, basically what we looked at was 25 years potentially with an addition on the current police station versus possibly 50 years in this building without any types of updates or changes. So Chief Setner, you and I have had conversation. Do you want to expand on that?
Initially, the idea of coming over here seemed like a good idea. You know, we certainly would have more than adequate space for the department. But after meeting with Domaker and looking at their conceptualization of making that move, the concerns I have is how the building flows. We have an elevation issue here. There's been a number of additions to this building over the years, 2, I believe, off of the existing structure. I think it becomes a little problematic to try to move everything over here. And then the cost involved to do that. And as I've shared with the board, if we make the addition to the police station off the back of the building as it exists, and we get down the road 15 or 20 years, we've almost expanded the police department to be able to become town hall, because the addition could be opened up to be a meeting room for the board, and that portion of it would be completed. And still, you know, then the option then would be to maybe come over here at some point well into the future. I just don't see it working over here, at least as we sit today.
I have to agree with you that when the concept design came in, the biggest barrier is that area where they proposed a ramp. And there's differentiation between where this building is and the garages where the old fire station bays are. And really there's a disparity and there's no way to make it cohesive. If we went ahead with a community center there, like we initially talked about back in 2017, that separation wouldn't be an issue. It would just be a lift or a small ramp. But if there's a working police department, I think that would be a hurdle.
It would take I believe a lot of renovation within this building to make it workable. And the cost to do that, I think, would be more than adding an addition to the police department at this point.
All right. And what do you both feel? Because you were in the meetings with Don McCurr and saw the concept plans.
Yes, I did take some time, and I appreciate Chief's time to sit down and talk to the chief. And I wanted to see the building a little bit better. I think those that have been in the police department before, they've been in the waiting room, and there's a lot more to it. And I really want to take a look at the garage space. And so I appreciate the chief accommodating me to take a look at the rest of the structure. So I had a better understanding of the space that was there and potential to expand that space to bring more vehicles in. And I do think that's a possibility based on what I saw there. For me, and I did mention this when we were interviewing the candidates. My biggest concern was how many times we've used that space next door. And it's been used by the community a number of times in ways that we weren't, I think at the time, expecting it to come in handy, but it's coming in handy having that space. And so my biggest concern was really losing that ability to have that space because it was going to be taken up by the police department. And then, of course, when you look at just the fact is, I think there's a blanket statement that everybody knows that it's always cheaper to remodel than build, right? That's just kind of commonplace. But if we're talking about remodeling two facilities, now maybe that does change things. But because you're not talking about doing one remodel, you're talking about two. And just as I've continued to digest that, losing the space next door, the elevation changes that we have over here, and then the remodeling, it really wasn't clicking for me after that. It was seeming to make more sense in my mind to focus on doing a remodel to the police department, doing the addition, and going from there. But that was my thoughts on it.
Is there any opportunity for us to see the price of, these changes, paying them the fee to do a thorough eval and an estimate?
You would have to have the whole drawings done.
One of the things you said that caught my attention was this space doesn't work for you because the elevation changes. If it doesn't work for you today, it's not going to work for you in 25 years when we flip. So how do we get around that? That doesn't change. So you've invested your money over there, you stay over here, administration stays over there. That facility really isn't getting used well at all.
Well, and my only rebuttal to that would be is, down the road, it just depends on how far you want to take the remodel of this building and potentially changing some of the exterior walls and moving different spaces around, may be more feasible down the road than it is today. I don't know. And as far as the cost goes, until we commit to an architect and to drawing into a design and then a cost analysis by that architectural firm, we don't know. And we've got to walk those steps before we get to.
Well, I'm kind of opposing you two. I'm kind of on the opposite way of making this the police department, making it work, putting in whatever we need with ramps or elevators or however it's needed, and then moving admin over there. I think it is going to be the cheaper of the two options, and it's going to suit our immediate needs and going into the future. I'd love to know what the numbers are price-wise, but I'm confident there's rehabbing a building, changing walls and rerunning wires and stuff is going to be cheaper than building a new structure on the back of that building.
But you're rehabbing two buildings.
Well, you've got an existing structure, floors, walls,
Right.
ceiling are in place. You're putting up additional walls, tearing
Right.
down additional walls, as opposed to building foundations, new walls, new wiring, new plumbing. That's where the cost of new construction gets expensive.
Well,
Just
and
trying
there's
to-
no rush on it. I think that's an important part of this conversation is that we understand that the price of a piece of wood right now is ridiculous. So there's no rush. It's just conversation to be had for future. And it doesn't have to be decided today.
And I think that's a great point. One of the architects had mentioned, I don't remember which one it was. I gave Martha my sheets over there, but it's, and I wrote it down because, really what their statement was really impacted me. And it was, this is a generational decision that this board is going to make. So it's not one we want to make lightly. We want to continue to do our investigations and make a smart decision because whatever decision that the board makes is going to last a generation. And it's going to be, a future board of trustees down the road that will, be working with that decision that was made. And so we want to make sure that we make the right one. And you're absolutely correct. It is not a decision that has to be rushed at this point in time, because you guys are functioning in there. You have a working facility, and this is something that we need to plan for.
Right. The other variable that we had talked about was when we looked at Domaker's concept designs for the addition, if we were to move forward with that, we didn't really love any of the concept designs. The one that we keep going back to is actually Labella's concept. And so we thought, we're not in a contract yet with anybody. It might be feasible for us to reach out to Labella and see, maybe they're a better resource for an addition if that's the route we choose.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Domaker brought forth their concepts free of charge.
So did Labella.
Yeah, okay, so what's not to have them continue to give us other ideas for how to use this space as a police department? That was actually quite rushed by them. They actually turned that in about a week.
But
No,
we have,
no.
we have a bill here for
Yeah, that was
Domaker.
not free.
That was not free.
What is provided free was what was in the RFQ
Right.
Okay.
when you interviewed all of the submissions. That's free. Anything from here on in is going to cost us.
So, go
What
ahead.
we found in that invoice for the concept drawings for this is that we were charged twice for two different architects because you've got two architects working together for Domaker. You have DSA architecture
Right.
and Domaker. So we almost have to pay a bigger bill. Where if we went with Labella, which is the design that we liked for the addition, we wouldn't have to do that.
For the addition over there.
Correct. And we keep going back to their design as the one that we would want to emulate.
Well, there's nothing keeping Domaker or even, any architect from doing something similar that's not owned by Domaker, it's not owned by Labella. And it may not be a final design anyway. So I'm still at the position of, if this facility is not going to work for the police department today, how has it changed in 25 years? The elevations are still there. The needs for a ramp are still going to be there.
I
How does
can't
that
speak to
change?
25 years. I don't know if at some point the township buys another piece of property. I don't know what is going to happen in 10 years, let alone 25 years. I think that if we were to move forward with what the community wanted in this building, that would be a community center in 25 years, and it wouldn't be an option as a police department anymore. Definitely have a lot to think about.
Yeah, I agree with what I think you're thinking. During those, and by the way, we spent 5 hours, 6 hours interviewing Ken. And that was a really eye-opening experience. And my thought was with DSA at the point in time was, if we're looking, and I guess my head at that moment in time was thinking more about this facility and bringing DSA in as a possibility, because that is their expertise, is police design. If now I'm thinking more about continuing with where we're at, we're not designing an entire police department.
Exactly.
We're putting an addition on a building.
Correct.
And that could take a different architect who had that vision in my mind to do that, not necessarily creating a whole department from scratch, because we're not doing that. We're talking about just an addition on that building.
Correct.
So in my mind, if I'm changing that, I might want to consider, if we were moving forward with that decision, I might want to consider relooking at our candidates.
Exactly.
I agree.
I have no problem revisiting the candidates and their proposals.
All 4 of them?
No, we want to focus.
Another 4
We
hours?
probably-
I mean,
No,
we
we
know,
might wanna
we
focus
know
on-
these candidates. I have notes there that are in front of Martha right now.
Yes, Martha has all that.
on my sheets there, but, I took note. I don't have any need to revisit them. I mean, we interviewed them. We know who the candidates are. We know what their strengths are, and we know what their weaknesses are. And then we rank them as such, but, that was my mindset, was really looking more at this facility at least that's what I was thinking at that point in time. And as we were discussing this, with all the candidates.
Okay, so what we'll do is consider an addition on the police station, unless you want to just hold off for right now and think about it a little bit.
Yeah, I'd like to hold off. I need
Okay.
to go back and look at my notes on the
Okay,
different candidates. I still don't.
Martha has all my notes.
I don't see how this is going to work to our advantage looking out into the future. I know we don't know what the future holds, but we have to make some assumptions that we're not going to be acquiring new land because we have enough here to do what we want to do. And if we do acquire new land, it's for some other entity or some other function. So let's hold off for
Okay.
2 weeks and let's regroup again
Okay,
at the next trustee meeting.
Sounds good.
perfect. Thank you for your insight. I appreciate it. So still speaking about Damaker, we do have bear with me, try to get all my papers together. We do have a bill here, and I copied the invoice, and you should have it somewhere in front of you.
Yes, we do have it.
It's DSA on one side with a total of $2,495.72. And on the flip side is Damaker, which is in another $2,780 for a total invoice of $5,275.72. So Martha gave me the language. I just have to locate it. Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to adopt resolution. I'm not going to say the number, Martha.
That's okay.
Reimbursing payment in the amount of $5,275.72 for professional services rendered by Damaker Architects for police station concept plans.
Seconded.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Kalina,
Yes.
Augustine,
Yes.
Burns.
Yes.
And I'm sorry, Melissa, you put them out in there, right?
Yes, ma'am. $5,275.72.
Thank you.
Okay, so the Damaker discussion is behind me. I've got Protect Hinkley in front of me. We received an email, actually I received an email from a resident who said, hey, have you seen this? I copied and pasted it from the website. These are the goals. They sound reasonable to me. I don't know if you guys have, did you get can I copy you on this email?
I made a copy on the email. I don't have it in front of me.
Okay, so number one is they have 10 things that they would like the township to help implement. Number one is to update the 2015 comprehensive plan, which we are working on as of the last meeting. Number two is update the zoning resolution to match the updated comprehensive plan. And so in our minds, that's what we're doing. We're working on the comprehensive plan to see what the people of Hinkley would like, quantify, do surveys, and determine if they would like to see an acreage increase. We also talked about tackling conservation district language and sustainability language in that comprehensive plan. So one goes with two. We're working on both of them together. And for those of you who don't know it, the comprehensive plan backs up the zoning resolution. So we have to have one before we can do the other. Number three is to limit the introduction of new water and sewer lines into Hinckley Township. We do not have any water or sewer lines in the center of town. We do have the ability to get them if a developer decides to bring them in, if the county decides to bring them in, or if the trustees determine that they would like to bring them in. I have spoken to several people in 2017. I spoke to several people last year, and I spoke to several people this year who would like to see water in the center of town. I'm not opposed to bringing water in, and I'm not opposed to not bringing water in. So I don't know what if you guys have anything further that you would like to add.
You know, we're actually going to discuss that topic.
The ARPA monies,
Yes.
Mhm.
So you want to just table that?
we'll table that conversation.
Sure.
4, limit the rezoning of residential R1 and R2 parcels. We have not done any rezoning in Hinckley Township since 2017, so that is something that we are already working on. Number 5, limit the number of zoning variances granted per year. We cannot, as a board of trustees, limit what the BZA does. That's the first part of the conversation. And the next one, number 6, limit the number of new construction permits granted per year. Both 5 and 6, we cannot limit permits and variances. There's no legal rationale to. I can't say, well, Mary just came in and got the last permit, so sorry, John, you can't have one. We have to follow legal protocols here. And I think one of the questions that Ms. Long asked me in the last email, which I apologize, I just got it, Ms. Long, was bear with me, where does it say in the Ohio Revised Code that we can't? The Ohio Revised Code doesn't tell us what we can't do. It tells us what we can do. And if it's not in there, we can't do it. I think you guys are giving us far more power than we actually have. We're not a city. We don't have ordinances. We can't limit these types of things. Number 7, retain the service of a professional real estate and or zoning attorney. Our attorney is our legal counsel, which is the prosecutor's office. We do have zoning professionals that we've worked with in the past. We have recently had conversation about potentially looking at other options from your years of experience, Scott and Sharon.
Yes, and actually, we will have representatives. I've invited them to our August meeting from OHM to have a conversation with us
Perfect.
About the topics we're talking about.
Very good. Number 8, and to go back to number 7, the rationale of having an attorney was so that we could know what our loopholes or our blind spots are in the zoning resolution. That's the zoning commission's job. Their job is to come through zoning resolution and determine what needs to be changed and what doesn't need to be changed. Number 8, completion of an annual ethics disclosure for all elected and appointed township officials. Ethics is outlined in the Ohio Revised Code for township officials. 10, revisit the conservation district regulations, which we just talked about. That is looked at through the comprehensive plan study that we're going to be doing, and then it will be matched with the zoning resolution. Do we have any questions on this, or do you have anything that you would like to add?
I think in summary, Melissa, thank you for doing that. Items 1 and 2 we're working on. But to summarize the things.
We're doing half of them.
Most of those are being addressed.
Summarize, the things that we can do, and then
Right.
the other stuff that we don't talk about, we can't do it. It's illegal.
Right.
It's above our authority.
Right. So I just wanted to address it. I've only gotten one email about it, asking me if it was possible, and the other email was from Ms. Long, who put it together. The other thing that we did talk about was the green space program, and we may come back to that. We have not met the mandatory deadline for a levy for this election coming up. So this is something that we would have to discuss early next year. So that's that. Protect Hinkley.
Thank you for addressing that.
Thank
Can I
you.
just ask a couple of follow-up questions?
Go ahead.
Sure.
It's pertinent at this time. And Ms. Long, can you approach this podium, please?
Bear with me. I'm just pulling up your emails. It's very small for me to read. I don't know how to make it bigger.
Okay, this is Nikki Long. I'm on Parker Road. So,
Ms. Long, is the green light on, please?
yeah.
Okay,
Perfect.
that means it's working. Go
Okay.
ahead.
Thank you.
So in terms of the new water and sewer, you said that you're going to have that discussion at a different time.
Right.
Later today.
It's
Later
in the
today.
agenda.
Yeah, you'll hear from us today.
Today.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to understand, I understand, that the township is governed by the Ohio Revised Code. And so are you saying that then, that we couldn't do as a township anything that's not explicitly permitted in the code? Because it seems to me that, the way the Constitution works, the way that federal law works is that, the Constitution sets up our government, and then any powers that are not explicitly stated in the Constitution are implied powers. And those are the powers that, there's no there's no Department of Education in the Constitution, but it's not prohibited by the Constitution. So the federal government has created one. So I don't understand why, unless these things are explicitly prohibited by the Ohio Revised Code, that the township cannot do them.
Because we are a statutory government entity.
Okay.
So our power can only be any limited authority, and townships are limited authority. Any limited authority that we have is statutorily derived, and it has to deal with the health, the safety, the prosperity,
Welfare.
convenience, general welfare, right, of the community. So we can't just just say, well, you can't, we're going to limit the number of building permits, things of that nature, because we don't have that authority statutorily
Okay.
to do that.
So we only have authority to do what is explicitly granted in the Ohio Revised Code.
Exactly.
Is that correct?
Exactly. It doesn't tell us what we can't do. It only tells us what we can do.
Let me clarify one thing though. As it pertains to townships,
Mhm.
the Ohio Revised
Yes,
Code has
that's
a
correct.
number of subsections in it, and each one is relative to a different type of entity. So you would have a village, you'd have cities, you would have states, you have this, a statutory state law. And as Chris said, townships are a limited form of government. So that the items that you're requesting, where you feel that they would be beneficial to the township, may be beneficial in our township, okay? But they can also be abused in another township. Whereas there could be other reasons why someone might limit BZA applications or permits for housing or uses. And so therefore, in the wisdom of the Ohio legislature, these rules have to apply to everyone overall. And that's what I think the three trustees are trying to stress here. There is a reason that not a lot of power is given to township trustees, okay? Because it's a citizen government. None of these people are, and I don't say this in a bad way, but these are, everybody here, whether zoning commission, BZA, anyone, we're all residents. This isn't our full-time job here. And neither is your advocacy for what you're doing. There are protections. And so that limited government and what they say we can do, the allowances are what guides the function of townships. Where cities have other statutory allowances as permitted in the Ohio Revised Code and the Ohio State Code.
Right. I mean,
Does that make sense?
Townships are the most limited government.
And wisely so.
Sure.
That's why I moved to a township. I moved from a city to a township to escape regulations in the city. And hopefully we can keep it that way to minimize regulations so that people have the freedom to build on their property as much as is allowable and reasonable. And again, it's regulated by ORC and our zoning regs.
So, I'm sure you can understand where I'm coming from and, some of the other people here or some other people who even couldn't be here. But, we know that the comprehensive plan in 2015, mentions repeatedly the desire to keep Hinckley rural, to limit development. And so what I'm wondering is if we can't do some of these things, which I understand that maybe we just can't, how is it that, you guys as a whole or individually feel like we can then keep Hinckley, rural, whatever that means to, I know that means different things to different people, but what is it that we can do as a township then to ensure that it sort of stays the way that it is?
I don't think you can ever make it stay the way it is. Growth is going to happen. We all know that. but you have 3 people up here that are listening to you and doing exactly what's been asked. And by attacking the comprehensive plan right now in 2021 versus 2025, I think shows that. It shows that we care about what you think. We live in the same town that you live in, and we want what everyone else wants. And that comprehensive plan is the best way to quantify what everyone thinks, because as much as you are advocating for this, there are opposite perspectives that don't want what you want. And so we need to quantify and say how many residents want what and where. And that's done through the comprehensive plan, which drives the zoning resolution and everything else. I think we're doing exactly what you guys want to keep Hinckley rural by attacking the comprehensive plan and seeing what the community wants as a whole.
And even then, it's still not a majority rural situation. Personal property rights are paramount in our country. We all want to own our property and develop it as needed. Therefore, even if a majority said we want to keep Hinckley rural, we have to weigh that other portion of this, which is the personal property rights that are, again, defined by our zoning regulations.
Sure.
And, the purpose of government is to do for the people what they can't do for themselves. Build bridges, build highways, put in the infrastructure that's massive that individuals can't afford. This is something that individuals can afford. If you want to keep Hinckley rural, take $10,000 and go buy an acre of land or whatever it'll buy, and then repeat that, repeat that, repeat that. It's simple. Well, but that's a quick, fast solution to keeping Hinckley rural. You want to protect property, own the property.
Yeah. And, I would like to discuss more about this green space law, because I think that would be a great way to do it. I mean, that would give us money right now if we had it to, let's say, buy the elementary school from.
No, it wouldn't. It wouldn't fall under that. That would be a totally different
Right, it's
use. I was on the original
sure.
green space committee.
Sure.
So
Yeah, it's just land.
So green space is just, it's only.
it would have a
Undeveloped land?
conservation easement on it where it would remain undeveloped in perpetuity.
And is there a maintenance cost associated with that?
There, the first year you would pay property taxes. It takes a year or so to exemption on the property taxes. But other than that, there were no
There'd be
No
a
identified
minor
cost.
liability insurance
Okay.
because it's undeveloped. It would be minor, but that would be an ongoing expense.
again, to put a kind of a realistic perspective, because like I said, I was not a trustee at the time, but I was on, there was 4 of us on that committee at that time. And we looked for a 1 mill levy, which would have brought approximately $300,000 in annually. And in retrospect, back in 2006, when we put that on the ballot, we would have had millions of dollars at this point.
Right.
And at that time, it seemed like that was a paltry amount. What could we buy with that? And so it would take some years to generate enough revenue and save it and to be able to buy some significant expanses of land. It didn't fail by that much. And we shared, Mr. Garapik and I, who are, still kind of active with that, our experiences. And it didn't fail because people didn't want it. I don't think people quite could grasp the concept at that point. It wasn't a priority.
Sure.
15 years ago.
Thank you, Martha.
Just so one or two more things. The ethics disclosure. When you say ethics are, outlined in the Ohio Revised Code, is there a reason that we just couldn't do just an annual, disclosure?
Let me ask you, in your letter to us, you had made a comment that there was a perception that something was unethically occurring in our township, and I'd love to know what those examples were. So, yeah, if somebody can produce those, I would love to see them.
Well,
What is that perception?
the perception is that there's been favoritism shown to at least one resident, and I'm not going to get into it because I can happy to discuss it with you personally.
No, but I'd like to know because I'm almost offended by it, because when I took an oath of office for the next 4 years, I'm going to be your fiduciary, all of you, acting in your best interest, all of you, all the time. And never has there been an opportunity for me to do otherwise. Nobody's ever presented something where I have to say, oh, I shouldn't do that. So I'm kind of personally offended by having to do this on an annual basis, frankly. But if you want to, I do want to hear from you. If there's something going on here, I'd love to know about it. As chairman of this board, I'd love to know about it. We can do it offline.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do it offline because I don't want to throw anyone under the bus at a public
I
meeting.
understand.
Because I don't think that's right. But I just think that it's another layer of accountability. And I'm not saying that, you, Mr. Burns, have done anything wrong. I don't think there's any reason not to do it. If everyone is doing everything above board, it would just, I think it just enhances accountability.
And so again, I'm sorry, but
Sure.
So just for your information, every elected official is required by statute, by the Ohio Revised Code, which actually has some teeth of enforcement, to attend ethics training. There's a number of ORC statutory requirements that are part of the audit and part of the state mandate for every elected official. And then within the Ohio Revised Code, there are sections of it that provide for unethical behavior for any elected official. And you know what? That has teeth in it. So at any point, as a resident, if anybody identifies any elected official, whether it be trustees, fiscal officer, in any appointed position throughout the township, that if that person has evidence, substantial evidence to that, they can begin the process for removal. It is outlined. I'm happy to send it to you. It's explicitly outlined in all the steps. We've undertaken that once or twice with the prosecutor's office. And it is something that has teeth and stands up and is not prone to litigation or the township getting sued. So, you can have any kind of ethical policy you have, but unless it's overseen and statutorily enforceable, it doesn't mean anything than anybody telling you that they're abiding by their oath of office in whatever position they're holding. So, have at it if that's what you want to do, but it exists. So I do take exception that there's an implication that it doesn't exist, because it does.
Right.
Sure.
There's an entire commission.
Absolutely.
Ohio. It's
Right.
the Ohio Ethics Commission,
Right.
and I believe anybody can reach out and have a conversation
Yes.
with one of their
Absolutely.
staff attorneys
Yeah.
and talk to them about.
Yeah. I mean, the
about,
provisions are there.
Right.
about a question that
Yeah.
someone might have about ethical activities.
But if
Sure.
there's an ethical question in Hinckley Township, I would really like to know, because I would want to know who you think is working with our team here in Hinckley and not working in the best interest of Hinckley and abiding by that oath of office.
Sure. Again, whether or not it's, enforceable, I think a disclosure form that would would list any property ownership that you would have in the township aside from your personal, property or the house you live in. So any other property owned and any, we could even leave it there. I know there's some forms that ask for gifts. I don't think that.
Our addresses are listed on the
Sure.
Board of Elections.
Yeah.
I don't have any other property in Hinckley except for the one that I reside in.
And I'll make the same statement. The only property I own is the house I live in.
I'll make the same statement.
Okay. But I think if we did this, annually with everyone on the BZA and the zoning commission, that would also be helpful, since they also.
And what would that change? Excuse me, I have an issue with this, because what you're asking is private information.
You're right. It is private.
And who is going to enforce this?
Well, you're right. It is private.
Yes.
However, it is, I think, something that is a duty that person who.
We're all bonded.
I don't know what that.
Yes,
what that
we are
means.
all bonded, and we have to provide pretty personal information to be bonded
I
for
don't
our
know what
duties.
that means.
It
mean
means that
insured?
we are insured. We are insured, and we have to give out a lot of personal information. We have to give out, and none of us can be convicted of any felonies. I mean, so I understand where you're coming from, but I guess what I'm requesting is that inquire. Say, what exactly are you guys required to do before you're elected to any office?
You were asking me?
No, I'm just saying, I think it's incumbent on the requester to say, okay, and to know exactly or inquire as to what kind of oversight is put upon all of us for doing this resident citizen job we do.
Okay, well, I mean, the trustees are responsible for, they have a fiduciary duty, right?
Correct.
And they're voting on expenditures. The zoning commission and the BZA, they're making decisions that affect, people's real property. So it can affect people's property values. So I guess I don't think it's a big ask to say, hey, we all own homes in Hinkley, but if you own any other property in Hinkley besides your single family residence or besides the land that you live in, I don't think it's a.
I think I know why you're asking this question, and I understand, okay? But you have to understand that one of the roles of anybody in any position is they recuse themselves.
Sure.
If there is any interest in any decision-making process, any financial gain to them or a family member. All right? And I have known no one in the history, and I've been elected here for going on 14 years. I know no one who has ever not recuse themselves when there's a financial or personal interest in anything.
And I don't know anyone who hasn't either. But let me ask you this. How do you know that that person has an interest in that property? How would you know?
How would you know?
Yeah.
So are we going to entrust you with that information? Are we going to
So are you making it incumbent upon the person who's serving
because a property search will show who owns something.
Does someone do the property search then to make sure that the person?
Property searches are done every time an application or a permit comes in. There's a permanent parcel number attached to every BZA application that comes in here that lists all the property owners on the property. So their interest in it and everything. And that, Chris, I'll let you share the whole BZA process and the thoroughness of the application and zoning permits, the same thing.
Can I shorten this a little bit? There is a process in place with the Ethics Commission. And if you have a concern, you're welcome to talk to any or all
Any
three
of us.
trustees with what you're concerned with, and we will direct you if we think, even if we don't think it's valid, go to the Ethics Commission. That's where the investigation starts to find out what you want to know.
And I guess have some fact, okay? Have some fact.
What does that
not
mean?
Innuendo.
Well,
And not this. That's what I will say.
Well, I have no facts.
I think.
Okay.
I mean,
I know
what
that.
happened here is that.
Yeah. But
when you're
whether
saying
or not I have facts, there is a perception that
I don't care about perception.
Well, that's where you're wrong,
Okay.
because all of us care
Ms.
about.
Ms. Long,
And
I do care about perception,
Okay,
but you need
thank
to,
you.
but you need to share that with us so we can tell you, I'm going to turn around, give me the facts now. That's what I would tell you.
Sure.
Share with you your perception, now give me the facts.
Okay, and I'm happy
Okay.
to do that.
Because without
I'm not
them,
gonna call anyone. I mean, I'm happy to do that, but you're right. I don't have facts. There's a lot of perception. You guys should care about perception because, we are the people that elect you. And so you should care about the perception.
And so are the people that you have the perception about. They are also the people that elect us.
Okay, well,
Many people elect.
I'm not talking about a large group of people, but there are a large group of people that have a sort of a bad perception, which I'm happy to talk to you more about.
Please,
But it
I'm
makes-
interested because that might help us redirect
Right,
or
yeah.
do something. We can't do anything with perception.
Right,
It's
yeah.
Say, hey, done,
Exactly.
heard
You
this
can't
here,
make
out that
everybody
here.
happy, and one perception is completely different from another. No different than Keep Hinkley Rural signs. I talked to one person who wants to shoot their gun, one person who wants to keep their chickens, one person who wants to keep 10 unlicensed vehicles in their front yard. Keep Hinkley Rurals keep something different to everyone. So perception is different for every single person. I can't be in charge of that, but if something unethical is happening in Hinckley Township, I would really like to know about it because we work diligently to make sure that we are abiding by that Ohio Revised Code. That's what we're held to.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Melissa, you want to finish up? Or are you done?
I wish I was done. I'm going to do a request to go into executive session to discuss police wages
At the end of this meeting?
at the end of this meeting.
Seconded?
Are we doing it for police wages? Or are we doing it
I'm
for fire
gonna,
wages?
I'm going to do both.
And let's make the comment
We'll
that
make
way.
it-
All right, then we'll do both. I'd like to make a request to go into executive session to discuss police and fire wages,
Seconded.
Compensation, right?
compensation
Yes.
Any further discussion?
at the end of the meeting.
Roll call.
Kalina,
Yes.
Burns,
Yes.
Augustine.
Yes, and last but not least, I want to thank the Hinkley Garden Club because they are working so hard to make Hinkley Town Center look great, and they donate all their hours and their perennials and their talent. And so thank you to the Hinkley Garden Club for working so hard to make Town Center look nice.
Thank you. Anything else?
That's it.
Pass it down to Mr. Kalina, please. And
Is this
one's
a
for
new
you.
one?
You've seen this before.
Is this the one I have right here?
Yeah, okay, could be. It says Rev 2, Rev 2 at the top. It's the right one.
Okay.
Yes. okay,
So
yeah.
when we last left this off, there were a few questions that the trustees had brought up during the meeting that have since been answered. You got asked about the insurance coverage for RAW. They provided us 3 separate policies for that facility. I reached out to our insurer and got their feedback about whether or not those policies were adequate. Their answer was yes, they're adequate. I asked them about our insurance for those parks that they're using, and they said all we have is liability coverage, which is all we need. Since in this contract that you have in front of you, RAW is responsible for all buildings, accessories, and lighting.
Structures,
Structures.
apparatuses.
Yeah, it's covered. So all we have responsibility is for liability. If somebody gets hurt on any of our properties anywhere in the township, that liability coverage covers that person for that injury should we be found responsible for it. That was answering that question number 1. Question number 2 was, please go
Can I
ahead.
ask a question about it? My question was specifically about the buildings. And so the building is on our property.
Right.
And who is actually insuring that structure? Because it sounded to me like our coverage did not cover.
It does not. It is RAW built that building.
Have you checked that on our insurance policy? Did you check that with Jim Zucchero?
I do know that we have no buildings listed on any of our ball fields.
Okay, that's good.
Any structures. It's all liability.
On the
That structure
insurance
isn't
list
that-
I have you review.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes,
Form of
we
stuff.
do not have any insurance on any of the buildings there.
Okay.
Fencing, any of that.
All right.
It's just liability only. And we did talk about that.
So who's insuring the building?
RAW's insuring the building. They built the building.
Well, are we sure they're actually insured? Or
Here's
do we not care?
my
if they're
question.
insured only because
Do
it's
we
their
care? They built the building for their purposes. We allow them to build the building for their purposes. If it gets damaged in a high windstorm, they lose their roof, it's up to them to repair that per this agreement that's in front of you. If they don't fix it. Yes,
Now,
ma'am.
my understanding was we covered the concession stands, and the only thing that Rod did not cover was the batting cage, because that was built by some volunteers associated with Rod. But I do think, just as we should also, those are our properties, buildings, the lights, the fence are capital improvements.
Mhm.
And we own basically the capital improvements on that field with that one exception.
That is true, and it says so in the contract that we own it. They may have
Exactly.
built
So
it, we own
need
it.
to ensure those capital improvement buildings.
We do agree that that is separate from this agreement.
I do. You just have to make sure that that's outlined or there's an addendum to your contract that outlines the circumstances of who is covering.
Should we make raw primary? If they have insurance to cover the building?
No, we should not. Because this is our property.
Right.
These are tangible capital improvements on our property. They remain with us. If Rod dissolves tomorrow,
We
these
maintain the
buildings
lights,
remain
buildings.
with us.
That was exactly my point after reading 52 documents back and
Yeah.
forth regarding this, was I kept looking for where's our coverage on the capital improvements. They're sitting on the township's property.
Yes.
And I wasn't seeing where anybody was actually covering that if there was a total loss to one of those buildings. How is it? Obviously, they're responsible for
lights.
repairs, but, and the lights is a good
It's
point.
gonna be any capital improvement of substance, you know, the dugout's okay, we don't have to insure the dugouts. I mean, it's a metal
that's-
roof, you know, if it blows off, which it has once, we replace the roof, you know, so. This is no rush. We can put this off for 2 weeks. I can get the proper language in here to address this insurance line.
Yes.
Aside from that, let me go over the other two items, make sure we're on the same page. We got this finished. Better define the maintenance responsibilities of the ball fields. In there, it clearly says that RAW is to maintain in a clean and orderly manner the appurtenances, the structures, and the lighting.
Yes.
Do we need more than that? They have so far. There's this, you know, a mutual understanding between us that we've worked for years without any issue. I don't know what Mr. Richter has no issue with where it's at with that language. He's also reviewed this.
I didn't either, and it's even very clear, just so the residents know about how long the lights will stay on, and that they will shut the lights off. You know, they might extend an evening game if the game is, you know, if you get into extra innings or something like that, but they will turn them off by
midnight.
That's fine. And then the last one is the lighting issue where we had, concerns about liability for the lights that were being put up there. I think we just addressed that.
Yes.
That's gonna be addressed, and we'll take a capital improvement policy to cover that. And I'll include that in this agreement. We're tabling it.
I have two things.
Go ahead.
Number 6, the board will mow the fields as needed is already said in number 3. The township will cut the grass at the fields.
I would agree. We can probably
I think we can get
/6.
rid of 6. Spelling on number 8, all persons.
Oh, you caught that little I?
Yes, I did. My vision's going, but it's not fully going.
Got it.
And the one issue that we did have with RAW when I dealt with parks in 2017 was that the president of RAW decided that he was going to put up a pseudo gate at the entrance
Of the parking lot.
of the parking lot.
And
Brian Richter said, absolutely cannot do that. Do we want to put language in here that says that? Because as much as they're in charge of the schedule, if Hinkley residents want to go play ball, they should be able to go play ball.
yeah, and I would agree with that. If there is a conflict, RAW takes priority.
Right.
That's kind of stated in here.
Yeah.
It's kind of like assumed that this is our property. You can't put a fence on our
It's
property.
assumed.
I would agree with that.
How many-
Since we
how
haven't
many
had a
times-
problem
How many times has this
Yeah.
happened in the past?
4 years, right? I think that was probably
I
an
just had
isolated.
I had a special RAW
incident.
president.
I do remember your incident. I do remember your
You
incident.
probably saw that in my notes.
Yeah, and then the signage and all that other fun stuff that you had to circle around.
Uh-huh. Okay, that was all I had to add.
So are you okay with not doing anything about the fence language, just putting an exclusion fence? It's to me, it's our property. It'd be like somebody putting a fence across my driveway. What are you doing
That's
here?
fine. And we're going to have to talk more about replacing that fence too. I
Yeah,
went back. and
I'm
looked
actually
at it.
Main
thinking,
fence.
and the
Yeah.
first time you hear this, I'm actually thinking of using a grant to replace that fence. Otherwise, we do have an option of split rail fence with a wire back. Inexpensive, but it's a half mile long. That is a long fence.
It's
I
a
measured-
long
I measured
fence.
I think there's
Just short
something
of
to be
half.
said. I think there's something to be said for the privacy of, and I know the fence is in bad shape, but there's something that's called attractive nuisance, right?
Which one's attracting? Who's the nuisance?
Okay, well,
I agree that it should
and here's what,
maintain, yeah.
here's what I'll tell you. So, my lovely bride is here in the audience, and we spent, I can't count how many hours at Kobeck and at youth field as our children were growing up. And so you have one kid playing, and you got the other one who's bored, right?
Yeah.
And what's the other one that's bored doing? Well, he's over at Big 3 Automotive checking out the car because there's a gap in the fence that's big. And hey, let's go over the industrial park and see what's happening there. That's why the fence is there. So for me, it comes down to, I don't know, it's that attractive nuisance. I think we need, just like the industrial park has asked us from protection from other encroachments, I think it behooves us to maintain some kind of privacy fence.
Can we do a 4-foot chain link? It's actually less expensive than wood. Wood's just, even if we did,
I know, it's
even
very
if we did it
expensive.
when wood's a normal price, it's just so much lumber going down, and it'll last a lot.
It's a
longer.
long fence.
We have time to think about
Let's
it.
think
I'm
on
gonna
it.
investigate.
Yes, especially if there was grant
money, and
Yeah.
we'll go based
We
on.
could go vinyl.
Okay, well, I think we have some quotes. We do have some quotes. We have quotes for split rail and chain link.
The vinyl's crazy
We
expensive.
didn't even bother doing wood yet
Everything's
because it's nuts. Yeah, the vinyl was very expensive.
Very expensive.
Yeah.
It was a solution, but
We'll
it's
come
very
back to that.
All right.
But yeah, I agree with what we're saying about the rock contract. I think it looks good.
All right, well, I'll come back the next meeting, possibly have it in a final form, and we'll go from there.
And by the way, I was part of the attractive nuisance going over the Big 3 Automotive sometimes during the game to see what they were working on over there too.
So Medina County Fiber Network's our next topic. You guys have that agreement in front of you. This was sent to the prosecutor's office. He had his comments on the right-hand column. I think you see
Do you
the,
have a question? Do you want to take that question?
yes, go ahead, please.
Sean Papera, 988 Western Street. I just had about the chain link fence. You were saying that it's not private or whatever, but I thought maybe if we have an issue with paying for it, maybe you could sell banner spots for people to advertise businesses. That would,
It's not really a financial issue. We could afford it. We're just trying, if we can get a grant, why not?
keep it private.
Understood.
I had the same thought, Sean.
Parking cars up alongside the fence blocks all those signs. That's a disadvantage. So,
But Jim, thinking about the chain link, they do have the weave that they put through the chain link.
yeah, those are all
That
options.
offers the time.
Those are all options. We're going to explore all of them. I'm looking and see what the grant can possibly do for us, if at all. It's similar to the lighting grant. It's similar to that drainage on Kobeck Field grant that we got the year before. So it's in that same vein. And it's again for security for the children and the adults. So we'll see how that goes. So I'll work on that in the meantime. All right.
That's not
Insurance
it.
companies know attractive nuisance. That's why you have to
That's
have a
not
fence
it.
around your swimming pool.
Yeah, it's not an Eagle Scout project.
Maybe 200 feet at a time.
It's a little too long.
It'll be the next decade of Eagle Scout project.
Hey.
It's a very long. All right. So are we good? We can move to the fiber optic.
Yes, we're out of
Okay.
fiber now.
So we got the contract from Medina County Fiber Network.
Yes.
Port Authority. That was sent to Mr. Richter. Mr. Richter marked up the right-hand column. I've accepted many of Mr. Richter's comments because they're punctual.
We should accept that.
Punctuation errors, misspells. Okay, so what you're seeing here is the content. And there's only one real issue here. It is in paragraph E, where it talks about Exhibit C. And if you go to the very last page of your document, that's Exhibit C. Looks like the map. Okay, Mr. Richter had a comment, needs to be clarified. So in speaking with Mr. Richter, I got a better idea of what he needed to have clarified. I spoke with Mr. Corrado. Mr. Corrado accepted all of the changes that Mr. Richter made, except Mr. Richter still wants Exhibit C clarified. Exhibit C has to do with the space and how they're interacting with the township property. So in talking with him, I've got to go back to Mr. Corrado and work on maybe taking a picture of the electronics cabinet, the closet where this is going to go, because that's really what this is, defining in Exhibit C. That's part of it. Where are they penetrating our building? How are they penetrating our building? Are they drilling holes through walls? Are they going through existing holes? Are they going underneath the pavement?
Well, that's, yeah.
And restoring that. So that was Mr. Richter was concerned about, and it's not spelled out here. So with Mr. Corrado, I'll work on some language. Back to Mr. Richter, come back to you.
Okay.
Unless you want to change the order or refocus. Other than that, this is good to go. That's a big, other than that though.
Yeah, and I did look at that closet when I was over there as well, because I had not seen that, and it seems like an appropriate
I'd love to,
location.
I was really looking forward to, approving this tonight, but this is a big, issue that we have to get resolved.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And
I'd like
those
to
are,
read it.
those are all good
Yeah.
questions to raise, Jim.
Well, I didn't raise all of them, just some of them. But I think that's the only issue that you might find proves that the rest of this is acceptable to both parties, Mr. Richter, Mr. Corrado, and eventually maybe us in the next meeting. I'll try to get this resolved by next meeting as well. Any other questions?
Thank you for your work on that.
Yeah, it's not done yet.
It's been very time consuming.
Nothing's very easy. Nothing's easy.
Nothing's easy.
All right, moving on. Just a real quick announcement. The Rocky River Watershed Council and the Cuyahoga Soil and Water Conservation District is always looking for citizen scientists. Mr. Pearl is one of our citizen scientists, I believe, and to assist them in collecting water samples around our rivers, our streams, so that they can collect data points on turbidity, cloudiness, and I don't know if they're looking for bacteria and other things of that nature. It requires 2 hours of training, and then you're put out into the field with an experienced person. So if you know somebody that wants to have some fun, Heather Licardi called it fun. And I think it would be, if you're interested in that, you could take a child along and they could learn what you're doing as well.
That's what I was thinking.
Contact Heather Licardi. If you want to come through me, I'll get you her email address or phone number, okay? Quick land donation update for the public more than anyone else. Trustees have seen at least 4 township replies on having accepted land, the processes, however they accepted the land, the resolutions they used to accept the land. Right now, I would say this is in the landholders' ball court, because all we have to do is sit and wait for them to tell us when you want to move and how do you want to do it, and then we would decide whether to take it. I think our public comment has been, if Mr. Gibson is in a position where the Cleveland Metro Parks only wants to work with Mr. Gibson and not the township, and Mr. Gibson really wants only the township to be involved, we've already had this discussion in public, yes, that we will take the land. Is that correct? Please correct me if I'm misconstruing something.
That is correct.
Mr. Gibson's 22 acres. If push came to shove, we would take the land for Mr. Gibson as a conservation easement.
So we've had numerous discussions about that.
Okay. Well, we have to lean some which direction. If we're not interested, Mr. Gibson can go with the Metro Parks, or he can do nothing. I mean, that's his
May I
choice.
just inject one caveat though to
Please,
that?
please.
You're going to need to do your due diligence in finding out what at least 1 year of property taxes is going to be on any of these acquisitions.
That was in the email.
Just so that you are aware of that and we can plan accordingly.
Understood.
It's a good point. I would imagine that one is probably heavily reduced because of the existing
Right.
conservation easement that's taken away the development rights of the property.
It's also possible, unless Martha thinks it's illegal, to ask the donor to pay that property tax in some form or fashion. It's possible we could ask. It doesn't hurt to ask.
Once we get it, it's our tax.
Yeah, I think that's
In either case,
really,
the only other issue was liability insurance, which is all we have to carry since it's not a developed property. And talking with the,
sorry, I didn't do that. Did I?
1979.
I'm sorry, 1979 Chevy van, Rolling Stones Beast of Burden. I'm sorry, that's where I was going to be today.
liability insurance, all we have to carry on that property, which is going to be pretty minimal because it's not developed.
That would probably be pretty minimal.
All right,
We definitely need to
that's the
look at that. It's a
donations.
good point, Martha.
And the lighting at Raw is progressing. It might actually be done by now. They're on or ahead of schedule, even with all the rain. I have no idea if I talked to Mr. Euler from Raw, find out when you're gonna have your first night game. It's not even scheduled yet.
Okay, I would love to see them when they're done.
Well,
Let us
we
know.
could probably sneak out there and turn them on, but we could also just wait for a ribbon cutting ceremony where we actually turn them on at a
Is there
game.
going to be a ribbon cutting ceremony?
I think we should have planned one.
All right, I'm going to let you do
I
that.
will keep my finger on Mr. Euler to make sure he lets us know when the first
I
night
think
game is
that's great.
scheduled.
Very excited.
And
about
we'd invite the public along. We'll have, what do you
Well, there's
call it?
fries and stuff on the
French
corner.
fries, and, I did that for Martha's benefit. Okay, moving on. I am done. Ms. Carter, get through it. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. First request I'm going to make is the motion to appoint Christine Medwith, who's currently the administrative assistant, as another trustee meeting recording secretary on an as-needed basis in the event that Jen Amburn is unavailable to do so.
I will make that motion.
Thank you.
$15 per hour.
Yes.
Second.
Motion seconded.
And I will let you know, they did have a discussion with Ms. Medwith and had encouraged her to participate, which she is going to participate in, just on a topic nature, talking about training and the required training for public officials. I did encourage her to participate in the training dealing with public records and meetings and public meetings, and that training exists out there. It's at no cost, and we can send people to that. And so she is going to attend that. I think she's been here long enough. She's worked with Suzanne long enough, and I think she's understanding, that there's certainly a really long township learning curve, but she's been here long enough to really get a good grasp on things now. And so she's going to participate in that, and Suzanne is going to join with her in order to help any of the things that come up that maybe she doesn't completely understand. She'll be able to provide some context, and it will be a good refresher for her as well to understand that, because it's a great thing. It's run by their lawyers at the state, and they have them all throughout the year.
Super.
So just so you're aware of that.
Motion and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous. Motion passed.
And thank you for taking that initiative, Martha. It's a good
Okay,
idea.
my second item is a resolution estimating the aggregate maximum amount of public funds to be awarded as active and in deposits. And just as a point of information, every 5 years, we are required by statute to let out our depository contracts for our financials, the township finances. So this is the first step. And Mr. Burns, if you would read the resolution, please.
The entire contract. I'd like to make a resolution estimating the aggregate maximum amount of public funds to be awarded as active and interim deposits. The Board of Township Trustees of Hinckley Township, Medina County, Ohio, met in regular session on the 20th day of July, 2021, with the following members present: Kalina, Augustine, Burns. Mr. Burns moved the adoption of the following resolution, whereas the contract with this Board for deposits expires on the 22nd day of August, 2021. Therefore, be it resolved that the estimated aggregate maximum amount of public funds subject to control of said board be awarded within the new period of designation and be on deposit as active deposits in $10 million and as interim deposits is $4 million. That the fiscal officer notifies the banks of passage of this resolution and requests their application to become a depository. And be it further resolved, the applications will be received from eligible financial institutions at Hinckley Township Administration Building located at 1410 Ridge Road, Hinckley, Ohio, Medina County, until 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, 12 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, on the 30th day of July 21st, at which time the applications will be examined and the designation of depository shall be made for a period of 5 years, commencing on the 22nd day of August 2021. Seconded the resolution
Second.
by Augustine.
Okay.
Roll call,
Kalina?
please.
Yes.
Augustine?
Yes.
Burns?
Yes.
So the next step will be that I will be contacting 2 or 3 financial institutions, Westfield, Huntington, and another one, and they will either submit an application for our deposits or not, and then from there we will choose. We can choose several. Before, our last depository contract was both Huntington and Westfield, and then we'll go from there on that.
Very good.
Thank you.
Okay. So we are eligible for American Rescue Plan Act revenue. Application is open. And
Martha, I hate to jump in, and I may have missed it. Did they actually vote on the resolution?
oh,
Yeah.
thank you, Jen. Yeah, they did.
It's
We have a roll
It was
call.
unanimous.
I'm looking to see if the
Thank
green
you.
light's on there. Yep. Like, who's talking? I know, it's been one of those days.
Nobody hears anything, Martha. What are you talking about?
Sorry, I do need to explain. We are in the midst of our biannual audit right now. And as disturbing as that is every 2 years, generally, it's made even more challenging by the fact that every single piece of paper has to be scanned and emailed because auditors are not on site. They are working remotely. So this is a whole new process here. So That's my sad story. Anyway, back to this. So the usage, so the township is eligible for approximately $895,000. That money would be received in two tranches, one in 2021, one in 2022. The dollars can be spent through 2026. So there's a number of years from which those funds can be spent. The difference between that and the CARES Act money that was allocated, part of the federal budget last year, is that the CARES Act money was pretty much, it was a reaction to the pandemic, and it could be used for so many purposes. It could be used for safety, it could be used for payrolls, it could be used for equipment, and much of that was outlined in meetings last year. The usage of this money is very narrow, but one of the, about the only use that we're eligible. If we had devoted staff to pandemic responses, which we do not, those dollars could be used for payroll. We do not have that staff. We don't look at sub-granting businesses around towns. We're not, that wouldn't be an eligible use for us. One of the eligible uses for us that I've discussed with the trustees is infrastructure. And one of the allowances under the infrastructure portion of the American Rescue Plan is water quality. And as Nikki asked and brought up in her Protect Hinkley, and as Melissa alluded to, that water in town is something that's been worked on for a number of years, and the county has just not seen it to be economically feasible to bring water to the center of town. People that are concerned about development, the development primarily in this area would hinge on sewer. And this does not involve sewer. There is zero to none potential for capacity for sewer as part of this or in the future, according to the sanitary engineer in the center of town. But there is a need for, if you want to see the atmosphere in the center of town, you want to see businesses come in, you want to see some type of small town atmosphere that again is indicated in the comprehensive plan responses, that water is a necessary introduction into that mix. And so what I've provided to the trustees is that information. Melissa went out, she got some numbers from the sanitary engineer, and this is not a vote on what to do with this money, because we're not at the point for that decision. But my recommendation is to begin the process for the application for the funds. If we don't use them, we'll give them back. But the plus is, I don't think we should say no to $895,000 that we can keep the interest on for 4 years. So irregardless, if we never use the money, if water doesn't come down, they don't make a resolution to use the funds, well, then we've got interest on that money for 4 years that we don't have to give back. So that's my recommendation. And then, so the next item on my list is a resolution authorizing myself as the Hinckley Township contact, because I'm the one that's going to do the application. I'm the one that has to do the periodic reporting to the federal government and deal with the funds and make the appropriate estimated resources and changes in the appropriations, et cetera. And then Melissa, as the Hinckley Township authorized representative for the registration process to receive the funds. And so that's where we're at.
Thank you, Martha. We are limited as to what we can use the monies for. And I thank you for outlining that.
Yes, I
And for
watched a
going after
very
this.
lengthy webinar on that. It was a very lengthy and riveting webinar, I will say. And I agree with you. I left that thinking that the last thing you want to do is turn away $900,000. And then we should explore ways that we could use that. And then I thought, of course, obviously we would want to be able to come up with a way ourselves, but if we couldn't, there may be some other avenues that are out there as well, but we certainly don't want to turn the money away.
Well, just like with the CARES Act, some of the uses changed. We're not out of the pandemic, so, there certainly could be some allowable uses that just haven't been, that haven't been considered yet. Who knows? But I think we're better off to accept the funds. And I mean, if the trustees, this wouldn't be a decision this year. But if they do decide to proceed with that, it is within that parameter. And I wouldn't say the township should agree with the sanitary engineer to pay the whole thing. But it's certainly a large portion of the expected costs, either to bring it down from the Skyland, Cooter Road there, where it ends right now, or to bring it up Ridge from Bellis.
All right, well, I think if we were talking about that, I know, Chief, you have tremendous challenges at your department because of the water quality, and it's impacting the township financially, as well as the quality of your facility.
Yes.
Right now. So, that's a challenge, and the police, the PDs know better, quite frankly, in terms of water quality either. So
You haven't mentioned the service department, which is abhorrent. So.
Yeah.
I haven't hung out there as much, Jim.
No, the flow is very poor. The quality is very poor.
So at this time, all I need is a resolution to proceed with the application.
Okay, I'd like to make a resolution authorizing Martha Catherwood as Hinckley Township contact Melissa Augustine as Hinckley Township authorized representative for the registration process to receive American Rescue Plan Act revenue.
Okay.
Seconded by anyone?
I'll second that.
Kalina seconds. Any further discussion, trustees? Can I have a roll call, please?
Kalina?
Yes.
Augustine?
Yes.
Burns?
Yes.
All right, and then in front of you also, you have an application for a liquor permit. I think this is for the gas station on Ridge Road.
Yep.
Yes.
We don't need a motion, do we? Just agree?
We don't need a motion, we just need a discussion that there's no request for a hearing and no opposition, no concerns from the police.
None.
Police have no opposition. Has fire department had a chance to look at any reason why you would oppose this? Any of the
I think
trustees?
it's important for everyone to understand, we don't grant liquor license. We just either say that we have an opposition to it, which then is part of a hearing process at the state level. We do not grant any liquor license. I have no opposition.
I have no opposition.
I'd say that's unanimous. We can move forward with this signing and sending it down that we have no request for hearing.
Okay, and then these, just for, again, information, these come whenever a liquor license needs renewed. And it's just that oversight to say if there has been a significant issue with the vendor providing the alcohol, that the township has a right to state and bring their concerns to the state.
And we have investigated those in the past when there were concerns.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Then I need a resolution for reallocating $15,000 from 2191 210 360 0000, which is police department contracted services, to 2191 210 318 0000, which is training.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? A roll call, please.
Kalina?
Yes.
Augustine?
Yes.
Burns?
Yes.
Currently, the fund status is $6,549,965.54, of which $1,063,608.78 are in pooled investments, and $5,486,356.76 are in available primary checking balance with Westfield Bank. And I just have one more short point for consideration. Nikki, I applaud your position and your advocacy, because I was where you were at years ago. So I appreciate it and I admire it. One thing though, I did find helpful back, and because you guys are looking at the comprehensive plan update, and Jim will remember this, and we've talked about it, is that one of the first things that the trustees did at that point, and Colleen Swidek was our fiscal officer at that time, we took the citizen committee, and there was about 16, 18 people that had volunteered to be stakeholders for that comprehensive plan update. And we brought them all in here, and we printed out a lot of financial information, and everybody sat down, and Colleen presented a very thorough, I'm going to call it a tutorial, but it was just basically, this is our finances. This is how the township operates. These are the revenue sources. These are our restricted funds, and these are what we can use this money for. This is where everything goes. And this is the revenue that comes in. And I think it provided a really good understanding of a lot of things that, and people aren't expected to understand. They see $6.5 million in the checking account. They think, why can't you do everything? Why is everything so slow? Or why is not my road fixed? Or why aren't you buying the elementary school? Or whatever it is, But when people actually sit down, they have this information in front of them, you have a back and forth conversation presenting all this, I think it gives everybody a lot more information to ask informed questions, to understand from the get-go. Because a lot of times the RC is hard to understand, the budget's hard to understand. All these things are so convoluted. Levies are hard to understand, all of it. And so I guess what I'm requesting the board to do is, at the very least, do that again, or maybe have a special work session. Again, all these are on Zoom. There's a resident putting them on YouTube. Invite the public in. It's like the state of the township. Okay, this is what we got. This is what we can use it for. This is what we project. And if there's a better way to do it, let us know. But these are our limitations. So I'm just throwing that out
I
there.
think it's a wonderful suggestion. I certainly benefited from it in 2014, learning how the fiscal condition of the township was, and that you can't just take this pot of money and spend it over there. It's focused on roads. It's focused on police. So it was very
But you can understand why people, that this is real foreign,
I always say it takes a good year to learn how to be a trustee. And even then, you're still learning the whole time.
Absolutely.
It doesn't end.
We're still a ways out before a citizen committee is pulled together.
I have a list of people who are already starting.
But when are we actually going to go out and say, let's get these names into a public list so that we can start?
Well, I think we need to have a conversation with OHM and listen to what some of their suggestions might be and what the cost is going to be.
So we're
So
still.
what I'm suggesting
It's
is just
separate.
to have a work session.
Yeah, she just wants to and
I
I think
mean,
it's
your
a good idea.
stakeholders can attend, or your interested parties can attend, or watch it on YouTube, or do anything
We're
like
still a
that.
month out, or you think we're going to be working closer than that, doing this citizen group? What's your thoughts?
I'm thinking I'll know more when we have a conversation on August 3rd.
Okay, so we have at least till then, and then we'll go from there. Okay.
Because I think that's our date of our meeting.
It's probably close.
Yeah.
Thank you much.
All right.
I'm done.
Thank you, Mark.
August 3rd is correct.
Okay.
This time I
Move
think.
into executive. Oh, you're going to pay the bills and
No,
then
we
we'll move
have to
in?
open the floor up to the
Yeah.
public,
Okay.
pay the bills. Anybody in the audience here would like to speak, please come to the podium and state your name, address, so that you can be heard by the people out in the Zoom world.
Thank you. Jim Larson, 20 Car Road. In my continuing, these are non-gotcha questions directed at Trustee Clean. In my continuing adventure in trying to understand conservation districts, a couple of questions have come up. One, is a conservation district allowed at the option of the developer Is it allowed at the consent of the township? Can the township say, well, you may want a conservation district, but we're not going to approve it? Even though, considering all the size of the acreage is appropriate and all that stuff. Is it the option of the developer to ask for that and you have to allow them to do that?
It is an option.
It's an option for who?
It's an option for the developer.
So, but it's not an option for the township.
Well, I mean, I guess we could make a recommendation.
In other words, if you
want
had a
to.
property that was so convolutedly laid out, that it just didn't make sense to a conservation district, but it met the acreage requirement, you could just say, or some entity that controls that aspect of it can just say, this doesn't lend itself to be a conservation district. You can build 2-acre lots and go on down the road. Is that?
I would want to relook at that language. There is language in the conservation development section that allows flexibility by the zoning commission to change those. There's creativity that can go into that when you're in that situation where you have, first off, water and sewer, and you have 100 acres. That's a contiguous parcel of property. So when you've met those requirements, then that flexibility can come in, because the goal, of course, is to preserve the sensitive areas that we have a lot of in Hinckley Township. So, I think that flexibility could be had on either side, and there is some negotiation that takes place at that level.
Yeah. And second simple question came up. Take the 2 places that have just been built recently. Question comes up about property taxes. People buy a house there. It's on a lot that's 30 to 40,000 square foot, and these lots abut one another. Do they only pay property taxes on the house and the lot that they occupy? And if that's the case, who pays the property taxes on, or are there any property taxes to be paid on the conservation area that may surround it? And if it's a long, convoluted answer, say, I'll send you an email, I'll give you a call or something like that.
Yeah, some of the property is exempted. I know in the development that I live in, just historically, and I wasn't in the development at the time, but I know the HOA did have to pay the CAUV, because when you come out of the CAUV, you've got a 3-year window look back that you have to pay on the taxes. And so the homeowners association, who you were paying part of that, I was not. I benefited after the fact that you had already paid that, Trustee Augustine. It was a considerable amount of money to pay that property tax 3-year window look back for that. But that might be a question for the Medina County Auditor's Office. But to answer your question, though, like with any of those homes, of course, they're assessed the same way you are. So you have a piece of property. How much is the property valued at? How much is the home valued at? Based on your comps, and of course, the auditor's office handles all of that. And they pay property taxes the same. Everybody pays the same rate. So if you're in the Highland part of our community, you pay this rate, and if you're in the Brunswick part, you pay a different rate. And
so they don't take into account the enhanced value of that property may accrue.
Well,
because of the
you're asking auditor assessment questions.
Yeah, okay. That's a good answer.
Trustee question.
That's a good answer. It is. It's a good answer. I'm sure I'll have more questions. Simple question: who's responsible for the roads in these? The road maintenance.
They're public roads.
The public roads?
Yeah.
So the concrete roads that are being built into Redwood.
Yes.
Over time.
Those need to be upgraded. And I will just tell you that, that was something that I don't know who else worked on that. It could have been you, Jim, as well. But I know Trustee Schulte had worked on that as well. The one thing that the township did make a change to the road requirements is going from 6 inches of concrete to 8 inches of concrete. And so, that was done. And I know when that road went in, for the Redwood, when it went in, the township was the township, along with the county engineer's office, was very particular, because I remember many conversations with Trustee Schulte. The developer wanted to move forward, and the township and the engineer's office was saying, not yet. you gotta wait for the right time. to
They
put this.
wanted an exemption because of the time of the year
Right.
in our subdivision.
Right, I just remember there was a lot of discussion about making sure that that road went in at the right time. So it's 8 inches of pavement, it meets the engineering standards. And even though those are smaller lots, it has nothing to do with the right of way or with the road, because the road belongs to the township.
They've already started maintaining it as far as plowing, crack sealing if necessary. Hopefully in 40 years, maybe more, 45 years, they may have to start doing replacement.
And then there's townships that, you know, the one thing you have to give our, the board of trustees, you know, way prior to this board, you have to give somebody credit. I don't know who the credit goes to, but, you know, we spent 12 years in Sharon Township. They're totally motor paved roads there. And during the time, let's see, there was a development I know that went in off of Medina Road. That road went in 03 or 04, and it was totally repaved by maybe 12 or 13. So, you know, you have to give the trustees credit, who said we only want concrete roads in Hinckley Township. And, you know, and that is different than some other communities that allow for motor paved roads. And our roads are, you know, I mean, I know we've got some roads that need some attention, but overall, you know, I don't have all the numbers for it, but I'm sure we got a better base when we're requiring developers and holding them to a higher standard of putting concrete roads in.
All right. Last question. I'm not here to open up the ethics can of worms again, but I would tell you that a lot of that question came about from a meeting that you attended at the BZA meeting when the gas station issue came up. Alternate Woolman recused himself, and he wasn't an alternate that night because they were shorthanded. And this question is directed at the 3 trustees, not the fiscal officer. So I'd appreciate you 3 answering it to the best of your ability. He recused himself. The dialogue came up, and he hopped in on that conversation, and he probably spoke for 10, 12 minutes before one of the sitting alternates said, "You really got to be quiet. If you want to say anything more, you're going to have to be sworn in." Well, what's the difference between, I mean, when he's sworn in, is then he all of a sudden puts on his private person hat and takes off his alternate BZA hat? I mean, how does that work?
Yeah,
I can tell you for sure that having that individual be involved in any part of zoning it's a bad look, because he and his family own a lot of property around here. They have a lot of matters pending or have passed before zoning commission of BZA, and to have him leap in there like that, and to your credit, you didn't say anything. You know, I thought, well, maybe I'm glad you did. You let the people on the BZA get control of it, and you did. But that was really inappropriate. And it may not have seemed inappropriate to him, but it really was to those in the audience. And I think a lot of the questions of, quote, ethics came up from that inappropriate response that he had at that BZA meeting, because it sure raised a red flag for me. So, I mean, there's nothing I'd like to see more than have him resign for the best interest of Hinkley and go about his business of property development and things that he does. He doesn't need to do one of these. Okay? I know there's a lot of people that are qualified to be in that role, as opposed to someone who has so much property and so many matters either past or going on in front of the commission. So anyway, that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Larson.
Jim, I just want to say that I was not at that BZA meeting. I have yet to read over the minutes, and I will look into that. But when we spoke about the mission statement here from Protect Hinkley, Number 8 says completion of annual ethics disclosure for all elected and appointed township officials, which Martha is. And so she has a right to respond to that.
And that's fine. But it's really disheartening to see you three sit there and her dominate this meeting the way she has tonight.
I don't feel that she's dominated. She's
Well, that's
contributed.
your perception, but it's certainly not mine.
Yeah, she has knowledge because she's been in this
Well,
industry for 15 years.
She's the fiscal officer. This is the trustees meeting. It's not the physical officers attended by the trustees.
Thank you for your opinion.
All right, I will, I cannot comment to the optics of individuals' opinions. I'm not going to either, but I will tell you that the Board of Trustees does have the authority for the Ohio Revised Code if a board member has done something that is illegal or, and I can't use the word inappropriate because that's not one of.
Well, you were there, you can characterize it any way.
Right, that is not one of the things, but if an employee of the township or one of our board members has truly done something that would be breaking the law, if you will, we could hold a public hearing to discuss, possibly removing that individual from the board. But I will just tell you that has not happened. A property owner does have a right to speak on their behalf. Whether or not they're a board member or not, and if that property owner recuses themselves from a voting position, like I said, I'm not here to tell you about the optics of it. I'm just here to tell you what the fact is, and the fact is that there's been no misfeasance or malfeasance. So this board is not in a position to hold a public hearing and question the actions of one of our board members at this point in time. So I'm just providing with an answer to your question.
It's just a real bad look. And I can't imagine that you could think that it would be anything other than a bad look. And I'm certainly not saying he did anything wrong. I'm just saying he did something no one expected him to do, as he had recused himself, regardless of whether he has an interest in the property or he doesn't have an interest in the property. Recuse me, you sit there and you let you have a spokesman there. That spokesman could have taken over the conversation on his behalf. And I thought the spokesman they had there was very well-spoken, knowledgeable. Why didn't he just go on and go about the business of stating his position as opposed to having Mr. Wolney jump in out of the clear blue and start dominating the hearing? I mean, I'm certainly not saying he did anything illegal. I'm just saying he just did something that would be unexpected by any person who, follows this kind of stuff. So,
anyway, appreciate you sharing your thoughts with us.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Studer, would you like to, Mr. Studer, take the podium, please?
Sure.
Jacob Studer, 6635 South Canyon Trail in Hinkley. And I would like to read, I'll read it quickly. I know we've been here a long time.
Thank you.
This evening is concerning the change that they're talking about from 2 to 5 acre zoning. And this was written by my wife, Chris, who, although is typically here in attendance as a reporter, but we're residents of Hinkley and would like to comment about it. So I think some of you may have gotten a copy of the letter, and then I have an attachment, but I would like to go through as quickly as I can, and hopefully I won't make too many mistakes as I go through.
Please go ahead.
My wife, Chris, and I are writing you as township officials in regard to some recent public opinion to change the zoning resolution of Hinckley Township. We'd like to emphasize that as a couple of residents of Hinckley for over about 20 years, we both support the comprehensive plan, which calls for maintaining the rural characteristics of Hinckley Township. Both my wife, Chris, and I come from families which have in the past or are currently are farmers. So the last thing we would like to see in Hinckley Township is overdevelopment. We're avid outdoors people, kayakers, hikers, hunters, and value the fact that we can do all three in Hinckley Township. There are numerous ways to maintain a rural characteristic of a township. However, we are very concerned that a recent push by residents to change the minimum lot size from 2 to 5 acres has the real possibility of the township being sued by developers or large landowners, resulting in a fiscal problem for the township. I have an attachment, and this just relates to something that happened in another township that I guess went outside the bounds, but I'll read about this just briefly. And it may be extreme, but this stuff happens. And this is exactly what happened to a small town in Pennsylvania when township officials denied a developer meeting all zoning regulations the right to build on property it owned for years. The attachment is lengthy, but basically in the small town, a developer wanted to build condominiums in a wooded lot he owned. The developer alleged town officials met privately to rezone the land with specific aim at killing the project. After 5 years of legal battle, back and forth, the jury found that the town had violated the civil rights of the landowner named Katz and awarded him $10 million in damages, which grew to $20 million over time. As a result, the suit drove the town to bankruptcy and its insurance was maxed out. Taxpayers are on the hook. The Katz tax was added to the residents' property tax bills that year and is still in effect today. I know this is extreme, but this stuff happens. The attachment will provide more detail about this case. We hope you'll take the time to read it. We just don't want to put Hinckley Township in a fiscally disastrous position in this small town. Should township officials bend under pressure to not follow Ohio law and township loses a lawsuit, it could end up with Hinckley residents paying a hefty amount of additional taxes on their property tax bill, as well as not having funds for fire, police, and road services. Additionally, we feel a change from 2 to 5 acres is unfair to landowners and farmers. Those sitting on 2 acres or less have nothing to lose from such a change, but according to the Medina County Auditor's Office, as well as agricultural real estate agents recommended by the Ohio Farm Bureau, large landowners wishing to sell their property, including farmers, for their retirement income, many of them that don't have 401ks or pensions.
Who cares?
Shh, please, he's the floor.
Stand to lose 30 to 50% of their land value with the change from 2 to 5 acres for a minimum residential lot size. These farmers are feeding us all. They do not deserve to have their land devalued. It is unjust for people to ask for a change in zoning with no means, no fiscal loss to them, but a huge fiscal loss for our farming families who own their property and should have their property rights maintained. We urge township officials to find creative ways of keeping our township rural characteristics, such as modifications to conservation developments and updating of zoning regulations where necessary. Also to be considered is a past effort by the group Green Space, which was talked about here earlier, which placed the levy on the ballot in the township seeking to raise funds to purchase plots of vacant land in the township to add green space in existing open areas. I would rather pass a levy to purchase open space than have the township being sued by a developer. The current suggestions of forming a citizens task force to study future zoning needs sounds like a responsible way to approach the changing needs of Hinckley Township. A blend of residential, commercial, agriculture, and business zoning done correctly will result in our schools, the township having a balance of tax-paying entities so that the tax burden for township services in our schools do not solely rest on the homeowners. This is a challenging task, and we appreciate the endless hours you as public officials, most who have full-time jobs, and are serving almost voluntarily as public officials are giving to the people of Hinckley. You have all said you welcome the opinions of your residents, and we appreciate the opportunity to express how we feel and express our concern that the township not be placed in any kind of jeopardy. As we go forward, we'll update our zoning code. We ask that use public officials act in a cautious, responsible, and legal manner in future changes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Studer.
We did all receive your letter. I read it yesterday, and I thank you for your input. I've said it publicly a couple times, and I'll say it again. I'm keeping a tabulation on my phone believe it or not, of people who are for and against. I don't think we can get to 5 acres. I say that to everyone. I just don't think we have the legal rationale to get to 5 acres. So I ask people, are you comfortable with 2 or do you want more than 2? And I'm keeping it on my phone so that when it skirts across my desk, when I vote, it will be the will of the people. So I appreciate your letter.
Sure.
And I've actually added your 2 votes to my tabulation.
I think one takeaway from your commentary and the research that you did with the Farm Bureau and some real estate agents that deal with that large property like that is whether it's 5 acres or 4 acres, the farmer's still taking a hit. The large landowner's still taking a hit. 3 acres are still taking a hit. So it's, there's a balance that has to be had. And I uphold personal property landowner rights very high on my list of important things to do for this township, which is why we have zoning regulations, and we do as good a job as possible making sure that they're enforced and enforced judiciously. Thank you.
We do. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I think the only thing I'll tell you is if you're interested in researching communities that have been impacted by their zoning decisions, read the Shimo case. If you haven't read that one, yeah, read the Shimo.
How do you spell that?
Shemo. All the Shimo.
Okay, it's just like it sounds.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Planners often cite that case. That was Mayfield, and Mayfield put up a number of roadblocks. The Costco that you can see driving through. They put up some roadblocks. It cost them millions of dollars because when you get out of this realm, okay, where this is us in Hinkley and we're making decisions. When it leaves here and it goes to court, okay, you end up with things happening like what happened in my subdivision in your backyard, where you have a judge now that's making a decision. So, I was a member of I resigned from the Wakefield run HOA when I was appointed trustee. And, one of the shocking decisions that came down was a decision that our HOA, based on our declarations and covenants, we have to mow. We have an open space area. We have to mow that once a year. Well, the court gave away our only access to mow that property. So now we have to cross over property. So those are the kind of decisions that end up getting made when something leaves our community where we can discuss those things because you have a judge who's then making decisions for your community. And then that's one of the things I brought up in the past about why we zone and why we zone the way that we zone is because we want to have control over making those decisions. And we certainly don't want someone else to make decisions on behalf of Hinckley Township because it may not be what we want. And it may have been worse than what we could have got with us making our own decisions. So just read the Shimo case. It's a really long history of that one that went on for quite some time. But it cost them millions of dollars that they had to pay in legal fees and for the time that it tied that up and because of the zoning. So, thank you. Thank you for sharing the information.
Please take the stand if you would, please, Mr. Larson.
Tim Larson, 20 Car Road. As far as the 5-acre plant, I think that is DOA. I don't think it has any chance at all of ever happening. I'd be surprised if 3 acres ever have a chance of happening. And excuse me if I'm wrong, but don't you and your family own Pine Hills Golf Course?
Actually, I'm part of the ownership group.
So you do own Pine Hills Golf Course?
I'm part of the ownership group.
So don't you think it would have been appropriate to lead your statement off with, hi, my name is, and I own part of Pine Hills Golf Course.
There are 100 stockholders in Pine Hills Golf Course.
Second item, it was mentioned in the last zoning commission meeting, and you mentioned it again. I don't think it's the business of the trustees or the zoning commission to concern themselves in any way at all with the financial wherewithal and what you would do with a farm. Why would you be concerned with whether a farmer wants to use his land as his 401k? That's not in the realm of the township or the zoning commission. Those kinds of decisions are personal decisions that they make with their own property. It's not the purview of, I don't think, any government entity to tell me how I should consider handling my property, I should consider part of my 401k. It just doesn't make any sense. It's just wrong.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you for your comment.
Thank you.
There's nobody else. Thank you very much. I'd like to make a motion to pay the bills once I get the total up here. Please bear with me. I have it. Just gotta get to the bottom of my screen here. I'd like
I
to make,
don't want to dominate you with this, so I won't. You don't need it.
I'm good. I'd like to make a motion to pay the bills in the amount of $120,878.59.
Second.
Seconded by Augustine. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye. And let's head into executive session here at 8:54.
We are heading to executive session at 8:54. Don't know how long we'll be. Hang around if you want. Don't know if we'll be coming out.
Melissa, could you do fire first, because I gotta go to work. I
Yeah.
gotta cover pieces.
Jen, keep the room open. Hold on, please. Jen, keep the room open. If you need to go, I'll take the host. Just give me hostship back, okay?
Okay.
I do not have to go anywhere, and I will leave the room open.
Okay, I don't know how long we'll be. Hang in there. Thank
That's
you.
fine, I'll hang in.
Partial, yeah, I'm a big car guy.
Goodbye, Mr. Larson.
Goodbye.
I'm the
Jen,
fiscal officer.
You
just
may
so you
also
know.
want to,
Oh, I appreciate your comments.
I like your comments. Keep it up. Don't stop. All right, I'm
you
muting.
may want to mute the room. Thank you.
This is a great idea, John.
I didn't change it, maybe Jen.
Everybody still online?
Yes.
Yes, we are going to reconvene
At
coming out
this
of.
time, I'd like to make a motion to come out of executive session at 10:05.
Seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, that's unanimous. And if there's no further business, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn at 10:05 PM.
Second.
You are adjourned.